Now, you know, we have NCIC about cohesion and integration.
Yes.
We have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is the one that is dealing with investigating cases of corruption and recommending action to be taken by the DPP. And in other cases also just going and having settlements with the people that they found. Jano, hii shamba nini ulinyakua. Sawa Jano. Tufanye hivi, sasa tumekushika na ulinyakua hii shamba. Surudisha tu hii shamba. And there are cases where actually they've resolved cases that way. But there are those that money has been stolen, money has gone, and cases go to court. Some of them are still pending in court, others have been concluded. We know the latest one, which is the Ferdinand Waitito case, which case was around February 2025, where the Milimani Anti-Corruption Court, presided over by Chief Magistrate Thomas Zioki, found the accused people, that is Ferdinand Waitito, Susan Wangari, Luka Mwangi Wahinya, Charles Shege, and Beth Wangeshi, to be guilty of corruption. The case was around the misappropriation of 588,198,328 shillings. Okay? Yep. Even the 8 bob matters.
It does.
This was money allocated for road construction projects in Kiambu County. They were found guilty. Waitito was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years in jail or to pay 53 million shillings in fine, and he was barred from holding public office for 10 years. His wife, Susan Wangari, sentenced to 1 year in jail with an option of 500,000 shillings fine. Luka Mwangi Wahinya fined 21 million shillings or in default to serve 7 years in prison. Charles Shagembudia fined 295 million shillings or to serve 9 years in prison for fraudulent acquisition of public funds and fraudulent practice in procurement. Beth Wangeshi fined 1.4 million shillings or to serve 2 years in prison for similar offenses. Now, as it stands, none of this has been overturned by a higher court. So all these people are corrupt people. We can call them today, they are corrupt people. They have been found so by the courts. The amounts here in Kiambu alone for this one issue, 588,198,328 shillings. That I don't want to discount any of them. Over
the 8 shillings matter.
a billion shillings in that one case. There's Moses Lenol Kulal, who is now out on bond because he's appealing a case where, as it stands right now, Moses Kasaine Lenol Kulal, the former governor of Samburu County, is a convict of corruption. Hesbon Washira Ndadi, a businessman and proxy of Lenol Kulal, is also convict involved in the fraudulent transactions. This was because of some implication in corruption scandal involving the supply of fuel to the county government through a company that he owned. The scandal centered on the misappropriation of approximately 83.4 million shillings between 2013 and 2019. Found guilty. Governor Lenol Kulal ordered to pay a mandatory fine of 83 million shillings, fined another 2 million shillings, or in default to serve 8 years in prison. Also disqualified from holding public office for 10 years, and so on and so forth. The Lenol Kulal and his co-accused have been released on a bond of 10 million shillings currently, pending the hearing and determination of the appeal that they've lodged. But before the appeal overturns the conviction, Lenol Kulal is guilty of corruption. And the amounts are those ones we are talking about. This is just one. We are going to look at what that money means.
Right.
You had the cases?
I did. 588 million is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Down to the last 8 shillings. Multiply that by 10 or thereabouts. 63 billion shillings lost in the Aror and Kimorer scandals. Now, the people of Elgeyo Marakwet was set up for success, I think, when they heard about this, because it is 2 dams to help with, of course, their water needs, with irrigation, with everything around that. And the projects were valued at 63 billion shillings, intended to enhance supply for water in the region and, of course, irrigation. Now, there was allegations of corruption and mismanagement in the planning and the financing of the 2 projects. And the scandal, of course, blew up in a very, very public way. There were some very high-profile individuals who were implicated and arrested, including Henry Rotich. He's the former CS for Treasury. He was charged with multiple counts, including unlawfully executing loan agreements. Now, the loans were to an Italian firm that was contracted, of course, to build this dam. David Kipchumba Kimosop, who is the former managing director of the Kerio Valley Development Authority and the agency responsible for overseeing the project, the two projects actually. There's Kennedy Nyakundi Nyachiro, who is a former chief economist at the Treasury, Jackson Jau Kinyanjui, former director of resource mobilization at Treasury, and several other officials from the Treasury and KVDA. Now, in 2023, on December 14th, the Nairobi Anti-Corruption Court acquitted CS Henry Rotich and his 8 co-accused due to insufficient evidence. The Chief Magistrate, Eunice Nyutu, criticized the prosecution for failing to substantiate allegations and for not questioning 41 witnesses who had been bonded to testify. She describes the prosecution conduct as, quote, reckless dereliction of duty. That led to the acquittal under Section 210 of the Criminal Procedure Code. Now, hang on to that bit, because they were not acquitted because they went through due process and were found to not be responsible or, to have been innocent of the accusations. It's because the judge found that the prosecution had conduct that was the same as reckless dereliction of duty. There's also another issue that I wanted to touch on, which is feasibility studies. One of the issues that came around the scandal was fictitious feasibility studies. A task force that was appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta found that Kimorer Dam was not viable. This is after money has been paid beforehand, before construction has begun, and now we found out that Kimorer Dam is not viable, leading to its cancellation in September 2019. Aror Dam was approved, but at a reduced cost. This is after billions of shillings had already been paid in fictitious claims. Of course, some funds have not been recovered, and the Italian firm had already made part of its money. That's one scandal. 63 billion shillings. Fictitious feasibility studies, court cases dropped because of reckless dereliction of duty. Reckless dereliction of duty. So we've painted the picture of what we're doing here. We're highlighting, what, 3 major corruption scandals? Because how many are there? In fact, the other day when we were having this conversation, we were like, Amatuanse Goldenberg. Then we were like, no, we might be here for several hours. We were like, we don't have the time. We don't have the time, the bandwidth, but it's to recognize the fact that, and we said it at the beginning of this conversation with Mariam and Eric, it's to highlight this, even the way he said 8 shillings, it's to highlight the cost of corruption. And the Aror Kimorer case is so complex because I think it's like every government carried it forward and carried it forward. Oh, it's too expensive to do. And then before you know it, when you least should, that's when you undertake it, and then something gets lost in translation. So we've spoken to the Ferdinand Waititu and that scandal, spoken to Aror Kimorer. There's also the NYS scandal, lest we forget. So we'll do some highlights here, as Mariam and Eric have done. The National Youth Service scandal in Kenya refers to a series of corruption cases involving the misappropriation of public funds allocated to the NYS, a state agency tasked with youth empowerment projects. And the scandal unfolded in multiple phases, with the first major incident coming to light in 2015. A few highlights here: that the amount involved, approximately 791 million Kenya shillings, fraudulently siphoned, thank you for the choice of word, from the NYS coffers. And these funds were intended for road construction project in Kibera, but were misappropriated through inflated invoices and fictitious payment. High-profile individuals arrested: Nelson Githinji, former NYS Director General; Peter Mangiti, former Principal Secretary for Planning and Devolution; Ben Gedhi, businessman alleged to have facilitated fraudulent transactions; Josephine Kabura Irungu, businesswoman whose companies received substantial amounts; Sami Michuki, former NYS Deputy Director General. What's the current status of the court cases? There's been acquittals. That was in October of 2023. Milimani Chief Magistrate Wendy Micheni acquitted former NYS Director General Nelson Githinji, ex-Principal Secretary Peter Mangiti, and 23 others due to insufficient evidence linking them to the theft. But the convictions, however, in November 2024, former NYS Finance Director Samuel Wachenje and Principal Supply Chain Management Officer Hendrik Nyongesa were convicted for their roles in fraudulent payments. One received a 5-year prison sentence, while the other was sentenced to 7 years.
some charges were dropped. In 2019, the Director of Public Prosecutions dropped charges against 11 suspects, among them NYS Deputy Director General Sami Michuki, citing, again, insufficient evidence. So, we've painted the picture of the cases and the money lost, convictions, some dropped, insufficient evidence. But again, I think what we're trying to speak to, for lest we forget today, is you've heard all of these figures. I mean, they are diabolical, but we've almost become desensitized or numb to them because 719 million.
We have not almost, Janet.
We are?
We are.
We are numb.
Oh, yeah.
And desensitized.
When it says 791 million shillings, you're like,
because it hasn't hit B.
Yeah,
it hasn't hit the B.
588 million, yeah. So let's even bring in the Bs, okay? How much for Aror Kimorera?
63 B.
Okay.
Billion.
Yeah. It's 63, right? So we may say that in Aror Kimorera, though, so this was money that was supposed to have been committed, and maybe money was not lost because money was not paid out, or whatever. The whole issue here is the cost. The costs, if all these 700 plus million shillings is siphoned out of NYS, which is an entity that is meant to elevate young people, okay? Give them skill and training. In many cases, also employ them for a while.
Right.
And make sure that our youth are gainfully employed and engaged. That is 791 million shillings that could have done that, and it did not. 588 million shillings for road projects in Kiambu County. Okay? We had an MP from Kiambu County the other day here, Githunguri, telling us about a road to Uplands that has not been completed. That's just one road, and you can say that's one. Maybe it's a main road. You know, it comes all the way from Ruiru, from Juja, it goes to Uplands, Nisasawa. There are many other small feeder roads that get into farms. When you talk about farm gates, you're saying that skuma, na cabbage, na spinach, they come from a certain area, maziwa inatoka mahali fulani. For that maziwa to get to the cooler, it needs a road, a proper road. A road was not constructed because some money was eaten by some people. The cost of it is what matters. The people of Aror and Kimwarer around that area could have benefited immensely from these dams. They'd have helped with water, they'd have helped with irrigation projects, and even the people downstream could have benefited from such. Did they? We don't have. Those two dams do not exist. The cost of it is way beyond, but also we are numb to that.
Maybe we
are
need
numb to the cost, we are numb to the amounts, we are numb to everything.
I'll try to put some numbers in perspective, and I know we'll do that throughout the hour, but just from some math. Aurora Kimwarer Dam scandal, 63 billion stolen. What could have been done with this money? Water supply and agriculture. Build, if you're looking at costing a dam at 1 billion per dam, 63 fully functional dams, to your point. How much more would that have benefited the communities?
So wait, but we were to build 2 dams with 63 billion, but we can cost for a dam at 1 billion.
At 1 billion.
Some smaller dams.
Some smaller dams. Still, because it matters.
Benefit communities, right?
In the long run. Drill, if you're looking at a borehole, one being about 5 billion, drill 12,600 boreholes at a cost of 5 billion per borehole. So
Billion or
5
million?
million.
Sorry, 5 million. Apologies. Okay. Are you seeing how I'm becoming desensitized?
So you're 5 million for borehole. You have really you've gone like 7 kilometers. But
we're being conservative.
Broadly, we're being conservative.
Let's say you've done a nice borehole, you've gone, let's say, 300 meters down, then you've put up a nice pumping station, you've solarized it so that it's using solar, and then you've connected pipes. So not just from the borehole, but pipes all the way to the beneficiary community.
Right.
So it's like a 5 million.
5 million.
How many?
12,600 boreholes. 12,600. So thousands of boreholes. And thank you both for saying we're using conservative terms. This is just ballpark because we want to sensitize. We want to feel the pain again. Because right now I think we're numbing ourselves to it. So these numbers give that kind of perspective. If we're to go briefly into things like food security, for example, and we're to look at the cost of about 2,000 shillings per family for subsidized flour. Providing subsidized maize flour unga that would be able to, at 2,000 shillings, provide 31.5 million families with that.
31
with a packet. How many packets?
We're looking at subsidized maize flour for 31 million. 2,000 Kenya shillings per family is how many
Because
packets?
2,000 is several packets. If you just go, let's even say that unga is 200.
Let's say it's 200,
Let's say
yeah.
it's lower than that.
Right. It's
So
10
those are 10
packets.
packets.
So you're providing 31 million families with 10 packets of unga.
What?
We're still looking at irrigation as that sinks in. If we're looking at 30,000 Kenya shillings for farmers for irrigation kits, again, modest figures, broad figures, that would be 2 million irrigation kits for farmers. And you think about what that can do
For our agriculture.
for the agriculture. Because it's looking at how this money could have gone to different sectors. A final one, it's actually quite a list of them. Water budget cost of borehole, I think we've spoken to. Tarmac roads, you just spoke to roads. If we're looking at 60 million Kenya shillings per kilometer, does that sound viable? 60 million per kilometer
For some roads.
for some roads?
Or, I guess depending on the type of road.
Yeah, but I think that would be there are categories of roads, the low volume sealed roads, and then you go into those high roads like the Western Bypass, which was costing 1 billion shillings per kilometer, which included land acquisition.
Okay.
That's
And
true.
it's a dual carriageway, so it's a multi-lane road. It was 1 billion shilling per kilometer.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're putting in how much?
So
Let's work with 60 per kilometer.
let's go with 60 per
60
kilometer. Could
Low
construct,
volume sealed road.
yeah, could construct 1,050 kilometers of tarmac roads.
1,050.
So let's even put it at 600 a kilometer. Reduce that by remove a zero.
Remove a zero.
How many roads? How many?
100 kilometers of road. Yeah.
If we're starting there.
Yeah.
Because either way, that infrastructure is still a gap.
100 kilometers of road network, at 600 million per kilometer. That's, first, that's a lot. That's a lot. That covers many of these roads that we're talking about. Just in Kiambu County alone, it covers 100 kilometers of tarmac road, new tarmac road in Kiambu County alone. Think about a place in Kiambu County, cross over from that side, go to the other side, and put a nice tarmac road, okay? And construct it using 600 million shillings per kilometer. Even pesa mingi already, but let's just put it that way.
So I actually didn't know how expensive roads were, so I'm reconciling. But
Right.
yes.
There's a lot to reconcile.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And just
Yes.
for argument's sake, can say this is a road that's not just a poor quality road. It's a nice proper road with proper drainage, and we even put lights and mulikamuizi. And a road obviously should be marked, but let's just say you even mark the roads, you do the drainage.
A walking path or a cycling
a
lane.
cycling lane for 600 million shillings. Remove 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers.
100 kilometers. Secondary schools, before we go into the break. If we're looking at 250 million to build a school, I think that's a number that makes sense. Then with that
To build
money
an
lost,
entire school.
to build an entire school.
It does make sense.
It does make
because
sense.
the late Ken Okoth did a school in Kibra constituency at about that 250 to 300 million shillings. An entire Mbagathi girls secondary school.
But do you know how many could have been built with the 63B?
How many Mbagathis?
250.
Wait, no.
250.
Wait.
We'll do the math during the break.
Yeah.
250. We can do the calculators, but
my God.
guys, this is the perspective we're talking about. You've just mentioned and given an example of a school.
Yeah.
Then we're looking at, by the way, we haven't even gone to 588 million.
No.
And the NYS scandal,
791.
791. We do want to get to that so that we begin to see and understand the cost of corruption and what it's costing. We're constantly talking about education and school and capitation and the crises that we're in. The cost of corruption is that it's brought us to this. It looks like we're going into a break. Mariam and Erica are going to be doing the math.
Yeah.
Mariam is reconciling.
I really, I use this thing in my head where TikTok has actually taught me. Think of 1 grain of rice, that's 1 shilling. 1,000 grains of rice, that's 1,000 to help you feel the scale. 1 million grains of rice, this entire studio would be filled.
filled.
Now multiply by 100, by 1,000 to get to 1 billion.
Right.
Multiply that by 63.
And then multiply that by the need, and then kind of like put that in parallel with the need. So as we reconcile this and continue to talk about the cost of corruption, engage with us on social media as well. Like we said, we're just highlighting a few cases. There's a myriad of cases. But you're watching Fixing the Nation on NTV and you're listening to us on Nation FM. We'll be right back after this break. It is now 8:30, 29 minutes past 8.
We'll shortly be crossing over to the interview for the IEBC chairperson, which continues today. And you can see here, this is the selection panel. The chair has sat. And the candidates for today, Lilian Wanjiku Manegene will be interviewed, then Robert Akumu Asembo and Saul Simiu Wasilwa. These are three of the candidates for the position of chairperson. Yesterday, Erastus Ethekon, Francis Kissinger, Jacob Ngwele, Joy Mdivo were interviewed. Once they start, we'll be crossing over there immediately. In the meantime, the costs of corruption in this country. Mariam, please remind us, the first governor of Makueni County was hailed for the work that he did in Makueni.
That's
he
right.
built a hospital from the ground up.
He did. It is called the Makueni Mother and Child Hospital, not the Kivutha Kibwana Hospital, by the way.
But it's not the Kivutha Kibwana. Okay. It is the Makueni Mother and Child.
And Mother and Child Hospital, right? Significant. It's in Wote in Makueni County. It cost about 135 million shillings to construct and equip. It's
What's
a
the
level.
capacity of that side of hospital?
Wait, it's a level 4. Let me
4.
begin there.
Okay.
Wow.
It's a county hospital, level 4. It can hold 120 adults and 18 neonates, babies that is. 120 adults, 18 neonates at the same time. And of course, it's been lauded for the cost effectiveness, how functional it is, what it's done for the people of that region. 135 million shillings.
135 million shillings. And if we're now to look at the corruption case where for Ferdinand Waititu it was 588 million, my mathematics shows me that you could build about, what, 4 or 5 of those? Thereabouts, right? Because now we're in the millions. So it's it's 588 divided by 135. And then the capacity says about 100.
Yeah.
So 100,
It's
200,
100,
300.
120 adults.
Yes.
120 adults?
And 80
Oh my
neonates.
goodness. 120 adults, 80 neonates.
So 200. We can do
200.
And then if you're looking at 4 of those, how many? That's almost 1,000. I mean, broadly, 800 or so. But look at that, especially with the maternal health.
Say 3-4 new level 4 hospitals in Kiambu County.
Exactly.
Or not just in Kiambu, in any. The money is not that it belongs to the people of Kiambu. It's Kenyans' money.
You're right.
Any scandal that has like this kind of monies, 588 million shillings, it could do 4 level 4 facilities somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere in this country. The late Ken Okoth, who was the MP for Kibra constituency, he died of cancer, remember? But he was very, very big on education. He grew up in Kibra. He was the MP for Kibra.
Yeah.
And he decided, you know what, I'm going to put in a lot of my focus with the CDF into just education.
Right.
He built a school called Magathi Girls. And he spent 48.2 million shillings in this school. 48 million shillings from beginning to completion. 48M. Now do by 588 million shillings divide by 50 million shillings.
Right.
Let's say 500 million shillings
divide by 50 million. That's 11.76. So let's say 11, 12 thereabouts.
11 secondary
Even
schools.
Bagathi Girls, secondary schools. This is, when we talk about corruption and we say, you know what, Waititu Kojera, Nisawa, and what they have done, this is what it costs. We'll leave you with that. Ruminate on that. Okay, chew card on that. And so next time when we come back here tomorrow, we talk about corruption, you'll know about it. Let's now cross over to the IEBC selection panel, where the interviewees for today are being interviewed for the position of chairperson. Eric Latif, Mariam Bishar, and Janet Bogua saying goodbye. Back tomorrow at 6 a.m.